Welcome to Sound Values, powered in part by LSA Burger and Classic of Denton. The views and opinions expressed by the show hosts and their guests are those of the show host and guests, and not necessarily those of the sponsors, DentonRadio.com, or the Denton Convention and Visitors Bureau. For more information, visit the Policies and Procedures page at DentonRadio.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in live tonight on DentonRadio.com. My name is Kyle Beats. We are broadcasting out of the beautiful Discover Denton Welcome Center on the finally cooling down, becoming fall Denton Square. I am hanging out with my man, Character, tonight. Good to see you, man. Character was really, really generous. I had a guest tonight who unfortunately had to cancel because they were sick, but Character filled in. I hit him up this morning. He answered me back. So now we're here to we're going to talk some vinyls because we had the vinyl swap a couple weeks back. And our mans was there, showed up with some stuff. Yep. And so we're just going to talk records. Last time we had it on the show, man, we talked about, Character and the Method Actors and shows that were coming up. So we'll discuss that a little bit more,
Sounds
too.
Good, yeah.
How that's evolving. And then, too, I want to talk about when I actually DJ'd that show just with you when we did that. Because I kind of wanted to just talk about that experience. I had never been behind you. I've seen you. The energy is outrageous. And so I want to talk about that as well and kind of the experience that I've had not only going to your shows, but being behind you playing the music as well.
Yeah, that sounds rad. Yeah, cool.
But let's just kind of dive right in. The first, let's talk some vinyl to start off here. To start off here, because we've seen Character before. We know the vibes. But so we're going to talk a little bit different tonight. Now, the first one I want to dive into is an artist that we both love.
Yes.
And we got the homie Overcast right here.
Yes,
Atmosphere with that Overcast EP. Now, there's a whole bunch of really good tracks on here. You were at the vinyl swap, and I played God's Bathroom Floor.
Yeah.
And that seemed to resonate with everybody. All of a sudden, even the homie Lee, some bloke who's a house music head, turned around and was like, yo! But then there's also Scapegoat on here as well, which is a fantastic track. But there's so much good on there. So if you have, I don't really. Some of these other ones Brief Description but the Outer Net was tight too. But if you choose your favorite off of just this EP, which one do you go
off
with?
of this EP? I'm gonna go God's Bathroom Floor only because it's not on the album.
Yeah.
So I actually back in 2015, Rhymesayers had their 20th anniversary at the Target Center in Minneapolis, and I actually went to it.
Oh,
and
nice.
So during Atmosphere set, they actually brought Spawn out onto the stage, and they did a couple tracks with this in its original form.
That is awesome.
So hearing Scapegoat in that live scenario was really cool, but from this EP itself, God's Bathroom Floor is definitely my favorite.
Do you know, because there's always been mystery, but do you know why Spawn and Slug separated ways?
I have no idea. I'm sure I've read about it. Maybe it might have been something to do with starting a family and moving to Florida. I want to say sounds familiar.
I feel some of us were when we first discovered when I first discovered them, I was like, oh, what happened? But then as somebody who makes music, you grow older and you're like, yo, friends just move. And you realize these guys recorded this never with the intention of it getting this kind of attention 20 years later. They're we're just, homies that make, So to me, I was like, well, I guess maybe you just are like, hey, I'm going to go do this now instead.
Yeah, I think he moved to Florida or something, but I was last time I read about it, I was it was years ago.
Man, Scapegoat is a great track, but I have to agree with you that God's Bathroom Floor is definitely one of the best songs from him in my opinion. But do you have any idea, and I never understood, it's Stress's 4-track fiasco.
I have
God's
no idea
Bathroom
what
Floor.
that means.
And so I feel Stress, whoever Stress was, maybe made the beat or something. That's what I don't know. Is I'm if it's Stress's, he took 4 tracks and combined them all together and somehow made this.
Could be true, because it could have been made on tape too.
Yeah.
This was what, 98?
It was 97.
97, okay.
Yeah, 1997, and then 2006 is when they did a reprint. What's crazy is I never even noticed they had the telephone number for Rhymesayers on here and the fax. They probably don't have that fax number anymore, but I bet maybe you could holler at them.
That's crazy.
And I love that Atmosphere's website was atmospheresucks.com. He was so
solid.
Soul crushing on himself for so much time. So, kind of do you ever find yourself bringing self-deprivation into your own music?
Oh, absolutely. That's 3/4 of my music. Yeah.
And so is it kind of is your music in a way a self-reflection?
Yeah. Of my sometimes of my more negative parts.
Okay.
For sure. Yeah. So it's where I can kind of take those parts and really put them in the forefront, as opposed to if I did it in my social day-to-day life, I would be considered a bad person, so to speak.
It would be hard to do things.
Yeah,
To just exist.
Which actually brings me to one of my records.
Yeah, let's check it
So
out.
I've been rediscovering my love for Kanye West.
Oh, really?
And I've revisited 808s and Heartbreaks a lot lately. And I have recognized in my 28 years that this is an absolute masterpiece.
Okay.
And it should be recognized as such. And if you don't believe so, you are absolutely incorrect in your opinion. But I was listening.
So what about this? Here, let me see this real quick. What
for-
about this makes it a masterpiece to you?
Have you listened to it recently?
No.
Okay, so it's first off, musically, it's just sonically a masterpiece. And I
Okay.
just got it on vinyl the other day because I've been craving it on vinyl. But it's also him like going through like a breakup. I think his mom just died like right around this same time too. So it's like depressing.
Yeah, okay.
But sonically, it's just put together very well.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you asked me the thing about like the self-reflection part and kind of like the self-deprecating part.
Yeah.
There's some of that in here, and you can kind of hear him start to deal with his mental health a little bit too.
Mhm. Even with, if Cuddy's on a track, it's probably going to have something to
absolutely.
do. And Welcome to Heartbreak. That makes perfect sense.
But yeah, no, it's a masterpiece. But then I was listening to something about My Dark Twisted Fantasy the other day, and how that was like an apology record for what I consider to be a giant PR stunt, but some people consider it as genuine. The whole Taylor Swift thing, which I do not care about. I don't care to talk about celebrity. I'm only talking about Kanye as a musician.
Yeah.
And they were talking about how he takes these things where he kind of creates himself as the enemy, but sometimes acts as that person in the songs and puts that to the forefront. So when he's like talking about all these like douchey things, so to speak, it's like him like taking that little negative part of him and like
That one portion and,
propelling it. And
accelerating it, for sure. For sure. So, yeah, and I mean, I've always wondered, because like you look at Kanye and sometimes you're like, oh my gosh, this guy is so ridiculous.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, I always have to go, I respect the ridiculousness because I'm not doing what you're doing. I haven't done what you've done, and once again, when you remove the celebrity concept of it, you remove the media and the publicity and all this stuff, and you just listen to his records.
Yeah.
I mean, they are awesome. His beats were fantastic, self-producing and putting everything together on your own takes an immense amount of talent.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Granted,
And,
later on, he started having a little bit more help to it with it.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, doesn't everybody? It's because then it gets to a point where like all of a sudden you make a good amount of money on something, but then you start investing into other things.
Yeah.
So you don't have as much time here, but then you can hire an assistant. So you're like, hey, you make a beat tonight. I'll be back tomorrow. I got to fly over here to talk to this designer about some shoes I'm gonna make.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
I'll come spit over it and we'll make our meal soon enough. That's cool. I never would have expected this to come out of that bag.
I'm telling you, I've been obsessed with this album. I've rediscovered it recently because I'd heard it when it came out and I didn't care for it. It was just like at the time the auto-tune thing was being overdone. I think around this time like Carter 3 had just come out, so there was just a bunch of auto-tune. It was like fatigued, and I just kind of dismissed it.
Yeah.
Where I've kind of recently just rediscovered it because I think Love Lockdown came on like Spotify or something like that the other day, and I was like, whoa, hold on, this song actually is really cool. So then I've just been re-listening to it a lot.
Yeah, and you talk about like, this is kind of where you express those negative portions of yourself, but do you have a way, because you're also a very positive dude. You're a fun guy. Like, I mean, like, I'm never like, oh, no, characters, G is here, So, like, is there a place that you express your positivity, or is it more so like, hey, man, this is kind of how I exist, like, out here, and then my music is where I can express that negativity?
I guess, a lot of I guess I'm kind of hitting some of the negativity from a point of cynical, like, satire, so to speak.
Okay.
But it's genuine, though. It's kind of most of my stuff has to do with the constant contradiction of things. So on one
like
song,
the sad clown concept.
exactly,
is how I
yeah.
describe it.
So on one song, I might be completely self-deprecating, but then kind of finding the silver lining. There's always a kind of a silver lining, but then on that next song, I might take that silver lining and set it on fire.
Okay,
Just for fun.
Yeah.
Because there is that little part of me that does kind of like pushing buttons.
No.
You know what I mean? And as I get older, and you kind of see this, like, especially in this town, there's a certain faux positivity.
Okay.
And so I think sometimes I'll be like purposely a little bit more negative than normal, just to counteract that like fake positivity.
Yeah.
Because sometimes life does suck.
Yeah.
And it's okay for it to suck.
Now, you talked about setting it on fire. That brings me to my perfect segue with Earth, Wind, and Fire. Another fantastic record. This was another one of my favorites. Gratitude. I mean, you really can't mention like great funk bands without literally this one being like probably the first one that you name. Everybody knows it, man. Columbia Records, and this is actually from my dad's. This is an original. Like this is from my dad's collection. And yeah, it's like here. So this was 1975. It's all in right here. Yeah. So this record is, I mean, at this point now, it's like 40 years old. You know, but I mean, this definitely was a huge inspiration for me and like the stuff that I make, the stuff that I listen to. And you know, for me, it's just it's just good stuff, man. It's really hard to find something on here that's not fun to jam and listen to. So, do you have any records that are more of like the older, like old school, or is there anything that you like to listen to that's, you know, a bit of an older genre?
Yeah, a lot. Actually, today I was on a Beatles kick.
Okay.
Yeah, so just today, before you hit me up, I was listening to Abbey Road on my way to school this morning, just because that's kind of the craving I had. And then on my way back, I was listening to Magical Mystery Tour.
Okay, cool.
Because sometimes I go on Beatles kicks.
Okay, yeah.
And specifically Abbey Road, even though it's one of those albums, a lot of people some people consider albums like Abbey Road and Dark Side of the Moon and stuff like that. They consider them like overrated. I think they're proportionately rated.
Yeah,
because
I have to agree with you
because they are masterpieces in their own right, and sometimes they're like that contradictory person in me wants to be like, no, not the popular thing.
Yeah,
no. So I like today I was on a Beatles kick. I actually listen to a lot of older music. I like Yes a lot. I like a lot of 70s progressive rock.
Very cool.
Sometimes I'll listen to the more insane Beach Boys stuff when Brian Wilson was kind of getting a little off his rocker.
Oh, yeah. I got to check out the more insane Beach Boys.
Well, yeah, and it's not like I say insane, but I mean like him going a little bit like like starting with Pet Sounds and beyond, but none of like the real surfy stuff. But when he was just like, I'm over all this stuff.
Yeah.
So I like that stuff a lot, just for like the 4-part harmonies and stuff. I've been listening to a lot of King Crimson lately.
Okay.
For some like their like jazzy rock fusion stuff. What else have I been listening to? I've actually and of course I think we talked about Pink Floyd last time too. Like I'm always listening to Pink Floyd a little bit.
Yeah, man. I think that you know, to say that Abbey Road or that Pink Floyd or, you know, some people have beef with Led Zeppelin and different. It's like it's one thing to not like a band or whatever. You don't like the sound that they make. But you have to, like, sometimes, like, I loved and still like Incubus. You know, I can listen to a lot of their music still. Sometimes I got to go on a kick. But I know people are like, oh, I hate Incubus. And that's cool. Hate Incubus. That's fine. I understand why you would.
Yeah.
You know, it can be a little surfer boy and stuff like that. You know, you might not like Brandon Boyd. A lot of people don't like Brandon Boyd, you know, the singer, lyrics, because that's very fun. But if you listen to, like, Mike Einzinger and these other guys, and like, the musicians, you know, the Einzinger, and before they had this guy named Ben Kinney who came on Crow Left of the Murder, you had this guy named Dirk Lance. He was ridiculous, like Alex Kuchnikev or something was his real name. And so I remember in high school, I've said this to this girl. I was like, look, you don't have to like the band, but you got to respect the talent, the ability that it takes. And she was like, nope, sorry. And I was like, oh, no. Like, you know, so even like, you know, there's only a few bands out there where I get like, maybe I'll still respect them. You know, like I think like it always reminds me of Zoolander when Hansel is talking about Sting, or I think it's Sting. He's like, Sting's another one of my heroes. He's like, I never heard his music, but I respect him for making it. You know, so that's I guess kind of how I describe it. Is like I respect anybody who makes an album and puts it out there.
Yeah.
You know, it's not an easy thing to do. It takes courage to do. It takes time to do, and it takes organization.
On that same plane, though, there is a lot of music I dislike just for generic-isms.
Okay, for sure.
So that's the music I don't respect, is the music that's kind of like being manufactured, not created.
For sure, the factory, pull the lever, crank it out.
I have no issues with people talking garbage about that stuff.
Okay, I'll agree with you on that one, too. And I know exactly what you're talking about,
just throw on the radio. Just
any
channel, rock, hip-hop.
Yeah,
pop. It's whatever. It has its formula.
It really does, and like I find that let's talk, like, the formulas are interesting. You know, is because like somewhere along the way somebody because people respond to it. You know, people listen to it, and sometimes I wonder like, do you like this, or is this just all that's available? You know, or is this all that anybody's ever shown you? Something that me and my pops just talked about the other night is like, is kind of the introduction of angry music. You know,
Right.
you didn't see a lot of angry music at first, you know, but you know, as society changed and things of that nature, we started to see more music that talked about stressful times. And it wasn't like just, I mean, they might have talked about love and stuff, but it wasn't like, you know, you listen to some other very heavy music or even some not so, they're expressing more of not a positive emotion.
Yeah, for sure.
You know?
Yeah, because even the heavier metal bands in the 60s and 70s weren't even angry as much as they were like fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you listen to Sabbath, it's very like it's almost like black magic and stuff like that. So it was like well, we're gonna do the opposite of the man. Against religion.
Would you have considered like Nirvana kind of angsty? Maybe not angry, but angst.
Grunge was pretty angsty. Yeah, I'd say grunge was pretty rebellious, especially just based in personality alone.
Yeah,
it was pretty like angsty rock and roll stuff.
Where do you think like that comes from? Like, you know, because a lot of people talk about like the history of music, and I don't know, you know, there's somebody out there who there's probably a definite history of grunge, like where it came from. But I mean, what do you think took it to like that side of things, where, you know, like to go, I guess, kind of like from fantasy rock, I guess, because even Zeppelin was kind of like that, and like Echo and the Bunnymen and all that kind of stuff was kind of like that. How do you think it went to this kind of more grungy side?
Well, I can tell you, according to some of the kind of like documentaries I've watched so far, the creation of grunge, a lot of it had to do with the tackiness of hair metal.
Okay.
And kind of a response to that.
Oh, okay. So the leggings and the big hair and
how it was so cheesy and glamorous and over the top and like overproduced, and like, no, we would just want to make music for us like outcasts who just do a bunch of drugs and smoke cigarettes in our parents' garage. We're making music for that person, the person who gets detention a lot.
For sure. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So isn't that, I find that interesting that so much of what is a reaction to something else. It's like you see that and you go, nope, we're gonna do the opposite. So I constantly wonder too, like, what is it about people that makes us want to rebel? Because even like last night I was watching for like the third time. I was watching Twin Peaks. Right. You know, I just put it on. I was like, whatever, you know, feeding Stella. Like, I'll watch Twin Peaks, whatever. It's chill. It's chill music. It's not a lot, but it's fun to watch. You know, oh man, I forgot where I was going with my whole point. It just escaped me.
Rebelling.
Yes. So one of the dads in there. Thank you. The dad says that rebellion is a sign of intelligence. You know, rebellion can be a sign of intelligence. And even today I said that at work, you know, because I work with kids who rebel against us all the time. And I'm like, well, that's a sign of intelligence, you know. Like, you know, at least they know what's going on enough to say, no, I don't want that. Yeah. You know. So like, I guess if you had to speak on like on kind of that aspect, we're kind of delving a little deeper here, but the need to rebel. You know, what is it that you think, like, what makes you need to rebel, to say no to the system?
Oh, it's hard to answer a good answer for that, because some of it, I don't know. Sometimes rebellion can be disingenuous, and it's wanting to be an individual is pretty hard, and wanting to like do my own thing, not being like just the classic, not liking being told what to do. Mm-hmm. But then sometimes I find myself rebelling just for the sake of rebelling. Yeah, and then it's kind of for the attention, I suppose, as well. But I think it's just kind of just so I can make sure I'm in my own path. Sometimes I rebel against myself for no reason.
Yeah.
If I find myself,
for sure.
Even falling into a responsible routine, I'm like, no, this is
this isn't you.
This is too responsible. Go get arrested real quick.
You've done crunches 5 days in a row at 6:30 this morning. Yeah. It's time to go get arrested.
Come on, man.
Let's go take out some hydrants with you know, Cool Hand Luke style. Oh man. See, and you know, this is why I brought character on to talk, because I knew we could talk about some interesting things, you know. Man, so I want to know what else is in the bag, man. Let's talk some more about the vinyl stuff. What else do we got here?
I just brought this one on so we could just talk about it for fun. As a producer, I thought you might have a lot to say about sampling and how this might have influenced you. I wanted to get your opinion on how this record. Yeah, Beastie Boys, Paul's Boutique.
So, you know, for the most part, like the Beastie Boys, and what's interesting is, this is what I'll say is, so I've been watching the Wu-Tang show on Amazon Prime. Mm-hmm. It's just like, I guess a mockumentary kind of thing, you know, just a show about Wu-Tang. And they walk up to a girl in the last episode, and they're like, yo, do you like hip-hop? She's like, what do you mean, like Beastie Boys? And they're like, yeah, this is a little different than Beastie Boys. But these guys were big, especially like, you know, they had that whole the instrumental tape that they came out with.
Yeah, the mix-up.
Yeah, the mix-up. Not this, but the mix-up. I used to listen to that on I listened to that on a road trip with my friend, and that road trip lasted about 5 years. We drove all around the country. We used to listen to that all the time.
Yeah.
That was a big influence.
That was them playing their instruments. That was a jam session.
Yeah, exactly. It was pretty much a jam session the whole time. But then you had like What You Want, you know, and so much of their, you know, so much just, you know, Intergalactic. I mean, so much of their music to me was like, okay, how do I do that?
Yeah.
You know, and like I remember being like, wait, they just took his voice and somehow turned it into a synth even more though. So now how'd they do that? And then first off, the way the Beastie Boys inspired me even more was just the style, being themselves, that old school Brooklyn, New York, completely owning who you are style was something that I definitely was like, okay, man, if I am a kid who looks like me and likes hip hop music and appreciates it and likes rapping, which to me, you know, is just putting words rhyming sometimes not.
Yeah.
Then then these dudes are like are who I'm gonna look to, you know.
For sure.
And so they were early on, and then Eminem, because a lot of my first stuff I was inspired by rappers. I liked rapping, you know, lyric, you know, putting words together. It was fun to do. It wasn't until later on that I started making beats and got more into the musicianship of it. But these guys were just so good and talented at pretty much everything. And that's what I love too, was the different voices that you got from each person, you know, Paul Revere, you know, and everything on that point. And so, you know, Beastie Boys, you know, I say are in my top 10, you know, as far as like inspiration and stuff like that, man. You know, they were just epic. I need to familiarize myself with this one better, though.
Oh, because this is like the Sgt. Peppers of the Beastie Boys.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just look at the way this folds out. It's beautiful.
And the crazy thing about this record, it can never be made again today.
Yeah.
Because this one is maybe like 100 samples to one song. You know, it's so sporadic. It's all over the place that back then the clearing samples didn't mean the same thing.
Yeah.
Back in like, 1988 or whenever it was. And
and that this record was made. I was a year old.
Yeah, and it was also their rebellion. Speaking of rebellion, this was their rebellion against the sound and License to Ill, because they didn't want to do that anymore because they were getting too fratty. Like all the frat boys.
Oh yeah.
They were, because I was listening to the autobiography this year, and like songs like "Fight for Your Right to Party," which were made as a joke to make fun of people like that, started being taken seriously, and then so they noticed that it was kind of backfiring. So just like, well, we don't want to do that again. We don't want to make License to Ill again.
Yeah.
So so they went and made this like completely like kind of experimental for the time, and then this is experimental sample wise. And then once you get to Check Your Head, when you have dub songs and hardcore songs mixed in the mix too, then it's a whole different thing. But yeah, this is actually a perfect record to bring up after rebelling, just to rebel against that original sound.
You're talking about like the songs being taken the wrong way. That reminds me of Kendrick Lamar's Swimming Pools. I can remember in 2007, I think 2008. I'm in a club down in Austin, and I can remember I'd heard the song before, but for some reason at that moment I was walking through that club when it hit me what the lyrics were actually talking about, which was to not be doing exactly what we all were doing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I was like, this is not a party song at all. Like, he's literally telling us, like, you know, and then he goes into the subconscious part, like, you will be history, Kendrick, you know. And I remember like going up to my buddy, I was like, hey, we gotta go. Like, that song what made me like, all right, now I feel like as I'm walking through here, I can hear that subconsciousness in my head. But that's, you know, that's kind of the beauty of that music in a way, and kind of like an interesting concept is that sometimes we don't always hear what's being said, but just how it sounds or how it feels to us. You know, we hear like maybe we don't hear like babysitting 2 or 3 shots. We just hear pool full of liquor and I dive in, and that's what we remember, and our brain connects that with fun, even though what Kendrick's actually telling you about and how he connects it this is not a good thing to be doing.
Well, and that's what's brilliant about Dr. Dre and stuff like that, because they knew that they were making a hook for people who weren't paying attention.
Yeah.
But still making a song with content, because you can't make a song with that content and its original purest form and have it be a hit.
Yeah.
So he's like, oh, no, you're saying a lot here, and I like that. So we're going to make these deep songs for people who aren't listening.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, my God. And
So
then there's going to be that one guy in the club that night whose whole Friday's ruined all of a sudden. And he has this existential crisis on the drive home. That's what happened to me.
And that's actually a cool thing about I'm actually liking this new pop resurgence. I had the same problem you did with Kendrick Lamar. With that, I wrote that song off. I was like, this is just another one of those party songs. I don't care. And then the subconscious part, I was like, whoa, this is crazy. I did the same thing with Royals by Lorde, too.
Yeah.
And because you're just like, oh, okay, this is just another pop song. And then you like hear the like, oh, okay, cool. It's kind of like it's mocking the very thing that like some people are thinking it's actually saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. Yeah. I love when that kind of stuff happens. And I like it, too, when I realize it, even though I might not have at first. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, wait a minute, because at least maybe I didn't get it at first, but at least eventually I was listening.
Yeah, absolutely.
Eventually. Now, I find this cool, too. So this is your record, and then this is Bureaucratic, and they have a very similar appearance to them. Like, as just far as, like, how it looks. This is Brooklyn as well. Yeah. So Bureaucratic is one of my favorite producers, and I actually bought this from him when I opened for him. He had posted, like, I'm going to have some vinyl copies of Beats 4 on me if anybody wants one. And so I asked him, can I buy it? And he was like, you want to buy it? You're playing the show. You want to buy it? I was like, yeah. So I Venmo'd him right there, and he hooked it up. But, man, it's just a really good record.
That's awesome.
And definitely like one of my favorite to own, and it's a double, and it's got the number on it, 140 of 343.
Oh, that's rad.
So that were made. That's the homie right there, Bureaucratic. Shout out to this guy. He's always been very friendly to me on Instagram, even though I bug him often. But whatever, it is what it is, man.
You got my Paul's Boutique, though.
Oh, wait. I almost took it. I almost got you. Well, you got my Paul's Boutique there. Paul's Boutique. Now, this is another record that I want to kind of talk to you about, and I don't know if you've ever heard this, but I'm wondering, Jake, would it be possible for me to pop this on the record player real quick? Can we do that? I don't know. I'm kind of throwing this out of nowhere. I didn't tell Jake I was gonna do this, but I'm kind of interested to see if the record player would pull this up. It's been done before. We actually have played this on here before. But while we're getting things kind of organized, thank you very much to the producer, Jake, for always helping me out. So this dude, Sam Galliartry, he's from Ireland.
Okay.
And his dad makes traditional Irish instruments. And so what he did is he combined those traditional Irish instruments with kind of like a trap feel to it in a way. And so I went to his show, and I took this with me. And I stood up at the front the whole time, and I yelled and yelled and yelled, and then let's see. And then right there, if you look in the light, he came and picked it up, and it says, "Thank you for your support, Sam G."
That's awesome.
So yeah, that was a good time. So I'm gonna pop this in here real quick, man, just so you can kind of hear it
I would love to
and
hear
get an idea. Thank you very much, Jake, for getting that all situated for me. So, and we'll go ahead and just pop this right on here. I think it'll just start. Cool, yeah, I can hear it.
Oh, cool.
Sweet. So just to kind of give you an idea.
Hi, Mom.
I love that sizzle. There we go. Cool. So just kind of like, and we might be losing a few tones here and there just because it's vinyl, but you can kind of hear that influence of those natural instruments that we got going on right there.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm. See what I mean?
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
Yeah, we got it all there. Yeah, so this is a dude out of Ireland. He's like 22 now. But you know, yeah. But when I first heard this, it was such an interesting like sound. I was like, what is this? And then I saw it come out on vinyl, and I was like, okay, that needs to happen right away. Awesome, cool. I just wanted you to hear that real quick. Appreciate cool. That. Yeah. Right on. Create some actual context to what we're talking about here. So do you, in your own music, I find that music's pretty experimental, and to take traditional Irish instruments, like those stringed instruments, they sound very woody, and very, like the strings sound real vinyl-esque. Vinyl strings, not vinyl record. Do you use experimental noises, or how do you experiment in your music?
It's, I feel like I don't experiment enough.
Okay.
So, because right now, I mean, the way I experiment at the moment, let's say just speaking of solo records,
okay,
is a lot of vocal layering.
Okay.
And just some, just making weird noises with my mouth and just kind of layering it and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, you're one of the few, especially hip hop artists that I ever see who's like, I need a mic with reverb on it too. You and Cool Breeze are the two people who I know who do that.
Yeah, I like to make a lot of weird noises with my mouth, and that's about the way I experiment now. And then of course, just trying to find unique ways to do the hip hop thing with all my influences in the rock kind of genre and stuff like that, without crossing the line of being rap rock, so to speak. Yeah.
Do you have anything that you would in there that's got the rock influence that you've experienced?
There's one record in here that has changed my life forever.
Okay, let's see what that
which
is.
Mr. Bungle's California record.
Okay. Now, I've heard of Mr. Bungle. Yes. I've never listened to Mr. Bungle.
So Mr. Bungle is Mr. Mike Patton from Faith No More and a bunch of other bands. This was the band he was actually in before Faith No More.
Okay.
If you know anything about me, you know that I'm obsessed with Mike Patton because he is in a bunch of bands. He's also a composer and a voice actor as well.
Okay.
He's also probably the most talented vocalist in the rock and roll genre. I'd put him even over Freddie Mercury.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes, he has probably one of the biggest ranges. This album specifically ruined music for me.
Okay.
Because Mr. Bungle, for the few of you that do know, is this album specifically is I don't want to say it's genre defying, but only because it's a crock pot of genres in a 4-minute span, maybe.
Okay.
To where it's very chaotic, but controlled. At least this album is. This is the most accessible one, and I'm still describing it as chaotic.
Okay. Yeah. For so somebody like myself who's never heard of this guy, this is the most accessible for me to listen to.
Yeah, and then you can backtrack a little bit.
Yeah.
And this was their last album that they released in 1999, I want to say. 1999.
Okay.
And it's called California because they made a weird nightmare-esque Beach Boys type album. But in one song, you'll go from polka to metal to scatting and electronic, all in the span of one song. And then one song will also sound like you're at homecoming dance in the 50s.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So it's all over the place. That when I discovered it back when I was 15, it made music very boring for me because if I turned on the radio, I was like, okay, cool, this is verse, chorus, and it's already bland music as it is. It's like, well, where's the 100 different genres?
That's the factory you're talking about, just cranking out that stuff.
And so this is another album of rebellion. Mike has always been a very rebellious person.
Yeah.
Even when Faith No More was blowing up and going on world tours with Guns N' Roses and Metallica and stuff like that, he refused to be a rock star, even though him doing that made him more of a rock star.
Yeah.
And and so he would be like, stop worshiping me, and he would pee in a boot and drink it on stage. And
oh man, the denial of his start.
But that kind of genuine, he never let it get to his head. He never let himself have an ego. He's just like, you guys like this? You guys like how crazy I am? Well, see how crazy I can really get.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with the Melvins? This is another example.
No, I don't know the Melvins.
So the Melvins were they've been around since the late 80s, I believe.
Okay.
Kurt Cobain liked them a lot too, and they still play shows. They're good friends with Mike, and they're on his label. The singer Buzz Osborne was telling a story about one time they were opening for Mr. Bungle, and they got booed off stage or something. Or they got booed a lot, and then Mike said he took everyone's set list before the Mr. Bungle set and wrote, "These guys are gonna pay." I think he wrote an inappropriate word on there instead of guys. And then they went out there and just did drone noises for their whole set. He's like, nobody boos at you guys. Not on my watch.
So he just took the fans down.
And he's like, no, that's rude. He's
like,
no.
Y'all came here to see me. I booked these guys before me because we like them, and you guys should have. That's awesome.
Yeah, and they just mess with the audience. Like, cool. And the singer of Melvin's just and that's when I fell in love with him. It's like, oh my God, this guy really likes me.
He came out there and told everybody to shove it. That's great, man.
But this one definitely influences a lot of me, and this is kind of one of the things that it was one of my entry level albums that really pushed me to experiment with my own music and want to create something that was unique, something that couldn't be replicated. Even then, I still I still have self-conscious feelings that I'm not being unique enough. You know what I mean? Or that I'm trying too hard. So it's always a battle. But I just go back and listen to all this stuff. All these stuff are unique in their own way. All three of these albums,
for sure. Now you kind of talk about trying too hard or this and that, and I would, if you ask me, I would say that Character tries hard, but not in a negative way. Is that you bring a lot of energy to the stage. It's not trying, it's doing.
And see, and you're talking about the live performance.
Yeah.
My self-consciousness really comes in the studio.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Yeah, live is actually something I have confidence in.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I was like, that's where I shine. It's when I'm sitting down to
What's the difference? Why do you think one is...
It's the creation versus the performing, I guess.
Oh, okay.
Because performing, if you do it just right, nobody's paying attention to your music.
Yeah. All right.
And so you can perform the worst song and have a whole room entertained.
Yeah. Oh man. That's
but you
great.
can't do that with headphones. You can't do that with people listening and dissecting and purchasing your album.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you can have the person who absolutely hates everything hip hop, everything rap, still watch your show and buy your merchandise.
Yeah.
But it's when they take home that merchandise that you got to give them something that they'll really like.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm having the biggest problem with that. Not necessarily writer's block, but I have this fear of repeating myself, which I see is pretty common in a bunch of artists.
Yeah.
And just this fear of just putting out a disingenuous product, and which is why it takes me so long to make albums.
Yeah.
Because I can't just write a song. It takes me, and then I'll be like, I've said this before.
Yeah.
Like so.
I mean, I know what you mean too, especially about you don't want to be repetitive. You don't want to repeat yourself. You always want to have something fresh and something, have something to say. Slug said it. One of my favorite things he ever said. He's like, if I'm going to take he was like, when I used to write as a kid, the songs weren't really about nothing. He was like, I'd write these bars and these bars. He's like, but then as I got older, if I was going to take up 3.5 minutes of your time, I wanted to communicate something with you. Yeah. So what that did, when I heard that when I was 23 years old or 22 when Life Gives You Lemons came out, that put a new thought in my mind that I was this 22-year-old who wanted to write songs that were stories. Even though when he was 22 writing stuff, he was just writing lyrics to write lyrics, But by hearing him that, and I liked that, I was like, oh, I want to do that too. I want to have each thing that I make needs to communicate something with you. And it's still the way with beats now, you know? Like,
for sure.
It might, to some people, always just music or just this, but each song has a specific meaning or reason that it exists, So when you are on stage... we got a few minutes left here. I kind of want to talk about being behind you on the stage. And the energy was awesome, man. You had that great Carpenter's intro video, which was super fun.
Yeah, that was me kind of trolling the audience.
Oh, dude, that was great, though. I think a lot of people really liked it because your emblem slowly faded in with you on the road set. It was fantastic,
begged them to buy me drinks.
It was, yeah, it was great, man. So, you constantly bring an energy to the stage, and so – how do you bring that energy to the stage every single time, from what I've seen?
I just love doing it.
Okay.
Yeah, I could perform every day of my life, and I'm going to do my best to do so. What I mean? That's why I have no issues struggling on stage because it's where I feel the most comfortable. Mm-hmm. And I'm also a spaz, and if I do that kind of stuff in my day-to-day life, it's looked upon strange. And I still do it in my day-to-day life, but I'm looked upon strange. Where sometimes I get paid to do it here. You know what I mean? So I'm a bundle of hyper energy.
A bungle?
A bungle of hyper energy, and it's an outlet for me. And then, like I said, it doesn't matter what song I'm doing. I could be doing like the silliest song, but I could be putting my whole if I had a bad day, I could put my whole negative energy that I felt all day and exploding it onto a fun song, or whatever. But I just like doing it. I have so much energy that I can't let out. And because the problem is I'm either completely hyper and energetic or I'm just the most tired person on the earth. But when I'm on stage, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Well, man, I can tell you this much. I appreciate your energy. I know people who've seen your shows appreciate your energy. I've literally driven by Backyard and have heard you when you're playing with when you're playing with the Method Actors. Yeah, driven by and been like, oh, characters bumping. So I appreciate the energy that you bring, and I appreciate the energy that you bring to the town. You're always showing up to events, man, having a great time and helping us put on a lot of fun events down there at J&J's. So much appreciated to you, man.
Thank you, man.
Thanks for coming on tonight, dude,
Absolutely,
and
man.
talking some vinyls with me, talking some records. Y'all, we've been talking to Character. You can find him on Facebook at Character. Where can people hear the music as well if they're interested?
I think we ran into some technical difficulties. It was on Spotify, but we're re-uploading it. So Character's Greatest Hits on Spotify, and we're also working on the Method Actor EP.
Nice.
That we should have by next year. And my next solo album, which is exclusively being produced by Pudge, is in the works right now, too.
Woo!
And that'll be out sometime, hopefully this year as well, too. Yeah.
That's what I like to hear. All right. Well, that's the first show of October. Appreciate you coming out, man. Appreciate everybody for watching tonight. I will be back on Sunday with an hour of chill music from 1 to 2 p.m. on the Sunday brunch. We will see y'all right here next week on DentonRadio.com from 7 to 8. Peace.
Well, thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed the show. We want to thank our partners and sponsors who made this show possible. And now stick around for a word from all of us here at Discover Denton. Do you love live music? If so, make Denton, Texas your next vacation. Find more information at discoverdenton.com.